All right, thank you, Katie. Well, it is officially back to school, and that means back to school physicals and getting your kids ready to be back in sports, recess, and guess what? The germs. This morning, we welcome Mayo Clinic family medicine physician Dr. Tina Arden. She's with us to talk about some back to school safety tips to ensure your kids can get back to school safely, to the books and everything else. So, Dr. Arden, it's so good to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start by talking about this. The babies are getting ready to go back this week. People are getting all prepared. It's Sunday ahead of the school week. Talk about the importance of making sure that they have these physicals done before they head into the classroom.
If your child is 3 years or older, we really want to see them at least on a yearly basis. So I always feel like that mental checklist of going back to school can include, when was the last time my child saw their doctor? So again, if it's been more than a year, a great opportunity to try to get that back on the calendar. But I also encourage families to give us a call for an appointment if there's anything you're concerned about going into the school year. Maybe this summer your child complained of some more tummy aches or was complaining about some headaches. Maybe you're worried about some mental health issues or anxiety going into the school year. This is a great opportunity to come in and see us so we can make sure your child is ready to have a great academic year.
And some other things, that we have to get checked up regularly. We as adults, our eyesight. Some people also may be checking in with their mental health therapist. Talk about maybe some of the test anxiety and different things like that these students may end up facing during the school year.
Yeah, that's a great question. So as part of our yearly exams with our children, we will screen for a number of these things right off the bat. So it's a great way for us to identify those concerns if maybe they haven't shared that with their parents or their families. Some of these symptoms are not as easy to figure out. So they may not say, I am anxious going into the school year. Again, it might be that they've been dealing with some tummy aches leading up until the first day of school. So those are all great opportunities for us to talk to your child and make sure we're not missing anything that needs further treatment.
That's great advice there. And so vaccines obviously is something huge that people have to get prepared for going back to school. With college, I remember I had to get a meningitis shot just to be prepared. Talk about some of those vaccines that are very important for you to make sure that your kids have, and thinking about even RSV that was so huge last year.
Yeah, so part of the yearly exam as well is to make sure we have the most up-to-date advice of recommending vaccines, anything that's new coming down the pipeline or getting ready for, say, the fall and influenza and COVID-19 vaccines. So I really think about in our younger children, our elementary age children, making sure they're up to date with their chickenpox vaccines, measles, mumps, and rubella. For our adolescents and patients going off to college, we're going to spend more time talking about human papillomavirus vaccines, meningitis vaccines, and doing any catch-up that we need to do to make sure they're fully ready to start their year.
And Dr. Arden, are there any particular injuries that we start to see during the year? We know kids get back to the playground and start playing around. They're mindless when they're doing it and just kind of having fun. Are there things that you see in particular with injuries that they end up coming into the hospital for? And is there any way that parents can make sure that they give them kind of the safety tips to say, hey, watch out for what you're doing so you don't end up hurt?
We certainly see our typical, I think, lumps and bumps, hitting the head on the playground equipment, maybe falling off the playground, getting a bruise or a bump somewhere. Certainly see our fair share of lacerations that may need stitches. One of the best things we can do for our kids who are playing outside frequently is to make sure they're in their proper footwear. That can help prevent some of these injuries. We're really mindful of the heat this summer too, so being as well hydrated as we can is a really important thing to remind our kids and staff members of going into the school year. And then in terms of sports, we think about things like fractures, sprains. Those are all injuries that we want to make sure we're evaluating immediately to make sure there aren't any long-term consequences of those injuries. And then overuse injuries. So if your child is really involved in sports and they're dealing with knee pain that's been going on for a while, that's a great reason to go in and see your doctor so we can talk about how to protect them as they go into their sports year.
Is there anything that you like to say to parents just to make sure, like, hey, going into this year, you talk about germs, we're in a post-COVID society, but COVID very much still exists. And you want to make sure these parents know that there are things that they can provide to their kids to kind of keep them safer while they head back into the classroom.
All the usual stuff we've been talking about is still really important. So washing our hands frequently, making sure that we're getting good rest, because that actually helps our immune system as well. Eating a healthy diet full of fruits and vegetables, and again, staying hydrated with water are really important preventative measures. I usually tell my families and caregivers that fever and GI symptoms such as vomiting and diarrhea are really good reasons to keep your kids home from school. And that's because we want your child to be able to get better from their infections so they can get back to school and perform well, but also to protect the health of the classroom and the staff members and the rest of our community. So that's one way we can actually help protect our entire community against infectious disease going into the school year.
All right, Dr. Arden from the Mayo Clinic. Doc, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're hoping these parents are well prepared heading back to sending their kids back to the classroom. And if you have some, good luck to you too as well.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yes.